Day.
Hello, everyone. This is Amber, actually, and my co-host.
Steven.
We have had a long time coming here. We're doing it for you guys tonight, for real.
The things we do for the people. There's bags under my eyes.
Oh man, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for asking. It's rare that I feel like that's like a lost art nowadays of people asking people like, "How are you?" genuinely. So I'm doing all right. How's everything on your side of the world?
Whoa. It's a lot of things, but I try to stay optimistic. Today was one of those days where I took some self-care time for myself. I got my hair done. I did my nails. I had a couple appointments that I needed to attend. So, it's always good to pour into yourself. I'm heavy on the pouring into myself these days because sometimes I get clouded in being a mom and responsibilities, which goes into what we're going to
I
discuss
see what
today.
you did there. I see what you did. Yo, this is a professional that I'm dealing with. Just like, all the self-care stuff, but then I forget about it because I'm a mom. But then I'm going to segue into actual topic for this week. I'm like, oh, you're a clever
I'm getting
one.
better. I'm getting better at,
Yeah,
delivering.
listen, I respect it. I bow down to you. I'll get up, but I can't.
So yeah, I'm just, it's a constant balancing act, I would say, with being a mother
Mhm.
and showing up for myself, showing up for the people that I love, my friends, my co-hosts, just my
Your dears. You definitely made that impromptu. I was definitely on the spot. You ain't never called me your dear before a day in your life. I respect
I
it.
I use a lot of terms. I like to nickname. Like with my daughter, I call her 1,000 things. I'm like honey bunny, or like I like honey bunches, or like, stuff like that. Cutesy
I
things.
do the same. I used to joke that if I don't have a nickname for you, then I probably don't vibe with you on that sort of capacity. But I feel like I've probably been slacking in terms of giving out nicknames to people, so I need to get back on that.
Yeah. I've always wanted a nickname, and I feel like because my name is so short, there's really
Mhm.
not a lot of ways to really nickname me. So that's why I came up with the bars term. So like bars. Not a
Mm,
lot of people called me bars anyway, but I kind of gave myself that nickname. I won't take
I
all the credit.
respect it.
Somebody gave me an idea way back when, but after that it's stuck.
I love it. I mean, I don't got any nicknames, so you got me beat there.
So this week's topic, we're gonna be talking about dating with child. Me, I have a child. Steven doesn't have any kids. He doesn't want any kids.
Praise the Lord.
And setting boundaries within, having that dynamic. I mean, I don't want to put your business out there, but have you dated anyone with kids?
I was about to say, like, you had me scared for a second. Like, yo, what are you about to tell these people? I mean, I think any man at this point, especially around my age group, like, you've had some sort of experience dating a woman with a child. Yeah, so I have to answer your question before I like s- go off
Indulge in
into
the
some
topic.
tangent. Yeah, like I don't even know what angle you want to take with this. So I'm like, all right, let me just answer the question and shut up.
Okay, well, I'm a new mommy, mamacita. I've been doing it for 5 years. I'm pretty new. I'm not a
I
veteran
don't know
yet.
if that's
I feel
new.
like
Five years is a substantial amount of time. I don't know if that's
I
new.
don't
Unless you're
know.
saying
I
like you're
mean,
new with dating as a mom, like if you haven't done it the first couple years, then maybe. But I feel
yeah.
like after 6 months, it's like, all right, you pull the band-aid off. You out here.
No, I mean, I don't I'm very humble, when it comes to my experience as a parent,
Mhm.
and I appreciate moms dearly. I always have. I always was the type to say to myself, I want to do it the right way. I want to, but things happen, didn't, and I, like I said in the last episode, am a proud mom. And, we meant to talk about situationships, but we didn't really dive too much in it. In my dating experience as a mother, I feel
Mhm.
like I've found myself in situationships more so than dating. I don't know if there's a difference. Do you date when you're in a situationship? Or are people
I mean,
labeling that?
you technically can. I mean,
Okay.
to a certain extent. I mean, the whole the difference is like you've dating you essentially you're exploring the opportunity with said person and you might be exploring opportunities with other people versus situationship you kind of have some sort of agreed terms of like what this is going to be. So I guess it can be dating but not necessarily. So I don't know, it's everything's a bit blurred
Right.
nowadays.
Yes, I feel like the communication part for the most part when dating is probably not a lot of people's strongest suits. So because I found myself in situationships, I've always I mean, I guess it's a stigma that there's confusion sometimes because the agreements aren't really like, what are the agreements? Like, I guess it depends on the dynamic too of the
Hmm.
people and the arrangement, but I feel as though like situationships shouldn't last so long because if then you're entangled with somebody, right, in this situationship. I feel like there needs to be a cap because at a certain point, y'all go together, in my opinion. Like 2+ years, you're still in a situationship, you might as well, I don't know, call it what it is, in my opinion.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Like I get what you're saying, but also like it's a situationship because like whatever dynamic they have works for both part or you would hope it works for both parties at that time. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the things that they align on in that dynamic are the things that they actually want for the long term. So it's like, yeah, I might be dating somebody, but for example, maybe me and this person have different opinions about children in the future. But right now, like this works per se. So it's like whether we do that for a year, 2 years, 6 months, whatever, I don't know if you want to make it like official or make it a thing because it's like, what's the point if we already know like this isn't going to go anywhere past that? Like we're in this sort of box and like you would hope you have an expiration date and nobody ever knows when the expiration date is going to be. But it's like, you know, you have homegirls, I have homegirls. I've heard the dynamics of, people being entangled for extended period of time and it doesn't necessarily go anywhere. So it's like me personally, I wouldn't tell this person to like, and I'm not saying you're telling them that, but I want to be like, well, you may as well just like make it a thing because it's like you're not gonna be happy because y'all don't want the same thing. Like it may work for now and there might be certain perks that you're getting from each other, but it's like I wouldn't advise somebody like, oh, because you've been in a situation shit for X amount of time, you should try to like make things serious. I would assume that, or I would tell them, hey, either you continue what this is and don't complain, or just end it and move on with your life. Like, but
Right, right.
that's just how I look at it. But I
I
could
just feel
see
sorry.
your standpoint also.
Yeah, I just feel like, like there's so many different levels of commitment and it's just like it's overwhelming. Like there's no rules and it's for me, I'm a person I like structure. I like to know, I like to communicate. I want to like be clear and I don't know. I just for me personally, my experience with that won't do it again, hopefully.
Mm,
But dating as a mom, I feel like there's a level of time management that comes with handling a person with kids.
mhm,
Before I had children, I have had dates with men who had kids. And
mhm,
I feel like women understand it more than men do. Like, in my experience, when I dated a man with kids prior to having kids. I was very understanding. I feel like I didn't really put a lot of pressure as far as like seeing the person because I knew that they had bigger responsibilities than I had at the time. And although they did have a lot of responsibility, they still made time for me. I never felt like I was lacking in that area with the specific person that I have in mind. I've only dated 2 people in the
Mhm.
past that have had kids when I didn't have children. In 2025, would I date somebody who has kids? I will probably say no. And I'm not closed off to that, but right now where I'm at, me personally, I would rather first of all, probably come 2026, I'm probably gonna sit dating out for real because there's just like a level of, mm, I don't know, emotional ties that I have with dating in
Mhm.
general that I feel like I'm not really like meeting people in that depth. So it
Mhm.
frustrates me a little bit when I do meet somebody and I'm really interested, and then there's a pullback or there's like hesitation. And, obviously there's like chemistry or there's like a rapport there that's really good. And I get in my head where I'm just like, oh, like, am I over communicating? Am I being too like persistent? Like, I don't know. What do you think about what I just rambled? I said a lot.
Yeah, you said a lot, and I have a lot of thoughts. I think, well, the first thing about, obviously we're talking more so about, you being a mom and dating. But I think in regards to the whole landscape of just dating people who have children, I think a lot of times we don't recognize the differences between the both sexes of like a father, dating a father and dating a mother. So it's like, you as a woman who has dated men with children, there's a level of understanding because you're naturally nurturing and like things of that nature. But also at the same time, you get a different experience because more times than not, the father is not the primary caretaker. Normally, someone who only sees the kid on the weekend or he only has select amount of responsibilities. And obviously, what your experience now, how much of being a mother is really a full-time job on top of that. So there's like a difference in that sort of parallel when it comes to like a man who dates a woman who has children versus a woman who dates a man who has children. And then in terms of like, I guess on the other scope of what you're saying of like bowing out of dating for 2026, um, I think all the things you discussed are just natural and normal. I think those aren't things you can necessarily avoid. Like I look at dating in general as like experiences. In general, I have a phrase or a quote that I go by of like life is a series of hellos and goodbyes. So I never look at anybody that I dated as like, oh, I wasted my time, or I wish this person did this, or I wish this person did that. Like it is what it is in the moment, or I may feel whatever frustration in the moment, but at some point I move on because that experience doesn't necessarily equate to the next experience I'm going to have. There's no way for me to tell what I could possibly experience with the next person. And so I always look at it as like I try to go into every situation with a blank slate and let the person show me who they are, show me where I may fit or where we don't fit in that sort of dynamic. So I never, unless someone has like really specific, in my opinion, unless somebody has like, look, I need to focus on my career, or, there's health things that I need to focus on, mental health or whatever I need to focus on, then yeah, you could choose to omit or not participate in the dating game. But I think it's literally like it's a filter system. Like you got to filter through people until you find somewhere that you match. So I think people who think that they're going to avoid certain things is going to be tough because everybody has something. And it doesn't necessarily mean they may be a bad person. They just may be different than what it is that you're used to, what it is that you want. So If you choose to take your break for all of 2026, I respect that. You know, I stay out of women's business. But the things you mentioned to me just sound like normal experiences. And
No.
like, even if you take that break, it doesn't mean 2027, you're not going to have those same emotions and thoughts that come up again. So,
Right.
but, I don't police women. So you can do whatever the fuck you want.
And, I say that and because I'm being a little dramatic, like, there's things personally that I have been turned off in general
Hmm.
when it comes to dating, but there have been a lot of turns on too. Like, I appreciate the people who do take the time, who plan and organize and like they want to see you, they want to talk to you.
And there's nothing wrong from being tapped out also. Like, think anybody who has dated on a consistent basis at some point is the same thing with any other aspect of your life. You do get tired. You could get tired from a job. You get tired from people. You get tired of your friends. You get tired of family. So it's like, I don't think there's anything wrong for like, you know what? I'm just gonna relax. I'm just trying to figure things out. Or it don't even necessarily have to be figuring things out. Maybe I just need to focus on my life and I don't have the energy and time to like indulge in other people. And there's nothing wrong with that either. And I think kind of what ties into this week's topic about, you as a mom dating, I think more and more women have had unideal experiences with men, and so they're decentering men and like pulling back out from the idea of dating and kind of just like, fortunately you have a lot of people who are, single parents, so they're focused on raising their child, their professional career, handling the other aspects of their friend dynamics and family. So it's kind of like dating is not necessarily a priority, especially if you're constantly going out there and having unideal experiences. So it's kind of like, you know what? I'd rather just protect my peace and just focus
Mhm.
on the things that truly matter at the end of the day. So
Yes.
everybody has their stance.
I wanna add to that because I feel like because the people that I have been trying to date, they don't have kids, right? I just said I'm not dating anybody who has kids. So a lot of them, they don't understand the emotional labor that comes with being a parent, right? There's things that I obviously don't discuss with the person, especially if we're not monogamous and like a couple. Like there's certain things that I would keep to myself
Hmm.
because I don't know, maybe it'll make them uncomfortable if I mention certain things, you know what I'm saying? So, like, I've also been trying to, um, observe what the response is if I mention something that has to do with my parenting life, you know?
Hmm.
So, and then if I don't like to test people, I try not to test people, but there are tests, you
In other
know?
words, she tests people. Noted.
No, but like, like for example, like if I mentioned something that was happening and you didn't follow up about what I mentioned, like, I don't know. For me, that kind of, for this example, was kind of like a little red flag. It's like, damn, I was vulnerable about something that I was experiencing.
Hmm.
Like, let's say it happened like, let's say it was something that happened that, that I mentioned that was happening, right? Let's say a birthday party. I'm gonna go to a birthday party with that's a bad example. But anyway, let's scratch that
Yes.
example.
It's fine. I get what you're saying.
You
Like
get what I'm saying?
regardless if it's a test or not, you would like
Right.
to deal with people. I think everybody would like to deal with someone who's attentive. So like when you're saying certain things, it's like these are things that they're keeping in mind. They're like, oh, I remember you referenced this or you said something about this, and like I will follow up with like, okay, you're invested in some sort of capacity. You may not,
Mm,
even if you don't remember all of it, like at least you bringing it up shows like you care, like you paid attention a little bit.
mhm.
But if it was you really didn't care, the fact that you're even trying shows some level of like initiative. So I get where you're coming from, and I think that's also important when it comes to the idea of like dating someone with children as well. So like I even like something as simple as like how the kids are doing. someone that's showing an initiative and showing that they care. They may not
Right.
necessarily know your kids, ever met your kids or whatever, but it shows like, oh, okay, like I understand that this dynamic is a package. And so,
Mhm.
yes, my focus and my attention is onto you, but like I also know there's someone else that's at play as well. So it's like, it's
Right.
really the least you could do in that case.
Right, right. And also I remember dating someone, well, it was like more of the situationship person, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm so confused on like what situationships are and what they're not, and it's traumatic a little bit. I have a little PTSD, and I think that I overthink because of those experiences. Okay, so back to what I was saying. So I was entertaining, and this person had kids. So I was
Mhm.
entertaining someone and they would want to be on the phone all the time, and they would like get annoyed that I wouldn't respond or I wouldn't pick up. And it's like, bro, like I am a mom, like I have shit that I have going on. Like I shouldn't have to apologize because I didn't text back or because I didn't, pick up the phone. It's like little things like that bothered me. And I also, on the other side of the spectrum, like I like the check-ins, like it in a way I appreciated that the person wanted to be on the phone with me because a lot of the times men don't really like to talk on the phone, I feel like for the most part, in my opinion. And I feel like that's a lost art. Like people who like want to hear your voice. Like I
Mhm.
appreciated that even though there was like a little bit of extremists on that end, I did enjoy it for what it was worth.
Yeah, I think that's just a classic example of someone who was possibly controlling. And then as you're kind of referencing it, like there's clearly a disconnect between their lifestyle and like what you actually have availability for. And so I think anybody who decides that they're going to date someone and the person reveals like, hey, I do have a child, like you have to reframe your mind of like how does this dynamic work and like what are the expectations. And also a lot of these things, regardless of what the topic it is, that whether we're talking about it, you see it on social media, wherever the case is like communication is so important, because if you're able to communicate, then you are able to understand the other individual and what they can and can't do. And so then that sets the table for what you should expect, and then you can operate accordingly and figure out
Right.
what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, and I feel like for the most part, men are they feel like they have to put more effort maybe because or maybe they feel like they shouldn't put in effort. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird because obviously I can't just pick up and go out for dinner whenever I want. Like I need to plan, it needs to be like a sitter and I have to like know in advance. And one of my pet peeves is mentioning of a plan and then not following through with the plan. Or like now I have to ask like, "Oh, are we still doing this?" You know what I'm saying? Like or
Mhm.
something like that. Like that's something that me personally, if it was mentioned, if you initiated that something was going to be done and now we're not going into it or now I have to ask if it's happening, like that kind of turns me off a little bit.
That's fair, because I've definitely have had those sentiments, had those experiences with people. Because I'm an introvert. If I don't hear from you day of event, I'm staying home. Nothing. There's nothing better than plan. Nothing. Plans are great. You know what's better than plans? Canceled plans. I love me some canceled plans. But yeah, like again, I think anybody, once you start dating somebody and you know that they have a child, like these are the things you have to consider. It's like the example you just mentioned is like one of the reasons why I can't date someone who has children, because my life isn't structured in a way where I'm tied to specific things. And like I have overarching responsibilities that I must abide by and can't abandon. So it's like I could kind of live freely and do what I want to a certain extent. And unfortunately, dealing with someone who does have a child, like their life has to be structured a certain way and like they're not as flexible. So it's like you gotta know what you're getting into when you decide to pursue people who do have children.
Right, right. So, I don't know, like, I don't wanna start ranting about anything, but there is a segment
It's your
of
show. You could do whatever you
"Let
want.
me rant." But I know I'm saying that because I don't really have anything that I'm really too pressed about, you know? I will say, though, this happened to me not too long ago. So,
Mhm.
obviously, I haven't been dating like that. There's a person of interest currently, but it's kinda, like, up in the air, I feel like. Great communication, but I just feel like, I don't know, there's things that are not clear. So this is
Mhm.
something that's actively that I need to kind of, like, figure out. Damn, I lost what I was gonna say. I do this a lot, it's so crazy. My god.
The key part
Let
of
me
letting you
rant.
rant is to actually have a rant. Without
Right, right,
that,
right. Fuck, I forgot what I was gonna rant about.
I mean, I guess I will go on a rant for on your behalf.
Yeah, go
Well,
on
not
a
on your
rant for
behalf.
me.
To I'll go on a rant for you, and hopefully, I'll say something that triggers your thought.
Okay.
Let's see. I guess a rant I could possibly have in regards to this topic. I do think there's a population of people who have children who then get mad when people are vocal about excluding them from their possible sort of like dating pool. So it's like you could be a mom or you could be a dad, and like you'll be on social media and people are like, oh, yeah, I would never date somebody who has kids, and they'll get upset about that. One, who the fuck cares? These are strangers. Why do you care what people's preferences are? Two, even if you were interested in these strangers for whatever reason, these aren't people that you would ever date. So they're just helping you out filter people that you wouldn't be interested in anyway. And then three, I think people should just understand that everybody just has their preferences in general. So it's like, I'm not going to get mad at someone who has kids who says they prefer to date someone who has children because they have a level of understanding of what it means to be a parent. I don't have that. So it's like, I would never take it personal or feel like I'm being excluded out of the group because of that. But too many times I find people on social media who are like, oh, it's attack on mothers or it's attack on fathers. And it's like, at the end of the day, people can have their preferences, and sometimes the reasons are valid. Like, yes, a lot of the times there's a bunch of ignorant stuff on social media, and they're trying to belittle people when they make these sort of claims or whatever. But at the end of the day, there is some level of validity when it comes to that. Like I know some of my women friends who don't date men with kids because they feel like they are pulling the father away from said child, because all the time that you're spending with me, you could actually be with your son or daughter, or if you have multiple kids in those instances. So they decide like they won't be participants in that. And then for myself, like I mentioned, like the life that I live is I'm not the most spontaneous person in the world, but it's like any weekend or any, after work, my canvas is clear. And so I could be open to do anything or whatever. And, sometimes, well, a lot of times, obviously, as a heterosexual man dating heterosexual women are, as I mentioned previously, are the primary caretaker. So if she's not at work, she with her kid. And so the opportunity to steal them away isn't necessarily as accessible. Or even if we do have time together, it always feels like it's borrowed time because it's like, oh, gotta go home and pick up my kid. Or, you know, can't leave my kid home alone or with whoever's watching them for X amount of time. So it's like, as someone who, if I was dating someone, they would automatically be a priority in my life because I don't have major responsibilities that take me away from them. I would want something similar like that in exchange. And that won't ever be the case dating someone with a child. So it's kind of like, yeah, which is unfortunate because oftentimes the women that I attract are women who have kids, and then I'll be like, yeah, this ain't gonna work because like I hate when, yo, what you doing this weekend? And it's like, oh, I gotta find a sitter, which is, it's a valid reason, but it's like I don't. That's not something I ever had to decide about who to watch whatever. Like I could abandon my house for 48 hours if I wanted to. Like like those are the things that I have to consider. Or like I've dated women with kids and it's like, oh yeah, the child's father, he's out of the picture, he's not, whatever. And then as soon as I come around, I'm starting to hear stories about how he's, making things difficult. And it's like, yeah. Or like even if it is like copacetic to a certain extent, newsflash, I don't like the male species. I know my homeboy, me and my homeboys is cool. Every other dude out there don't really care for it. So like me having to be cool with somebody's father because that I don't have the time. I don't want to be buddy buddy. Like I just unsubscribe.
Yeah. No, I
So
get it.
that's my little rant. Hopefully I spark something, some thought process on your
Yeah.
end.
I mean, I do see a lot of that, and it doesn't really bother me as much. What I don't like is the big mama, no kids, like the no kids. Like, "Oh, I don't got no kids. I'm better than you because I don't have no kids. I ain't trapped, I don't have a man who's gonna be in my life that I don't really, you know, I'm just saying, in
Mhm.
general. And I do hate that a little bit because it's like, okay, is that gonna be your personality that you have no kids? Like you can live your life without broadcasting that you don't have kids or that you don't want kids, just like in the same breath, there are mothers who make being a mother their only personality and their only characteristic, and that I will also vouch for as well. That is annoying, and I'm
Mhm.
not like that, but I do see it too. So my whole thing with tying it to that, I just feel like people who make no kids their personality or try to like make it seem like, "Oh, I don't have kids. I'm better than you." That kinda is what it kinda sounds like to me when I see things like that. Not that I give a
Yeah.
fuck because I love being a mom, and I don't think that, I get less of an experience while dating,
Mhm.
yeah, it's limited because, my time is limited, and if I'm giving you my time and my attention, it's because I'm interested, it's not because I'm just, you know, bored, even though maybe sometimes.
Oh. Shots fired.
Maybe sometimes, depending, but, for the most part, I don't have a lot of time to waste too. So, like, even if I am bored and I give you that time, I don't know, I feel like you should kinda be very honored, in my opinion.
This is no, this is absolutely correct. I think everybody, well, I think in general, people should look at themselves as like it's a privilege to have access to me, and it's also a privilege to have access to other people. And so you should value people's time. And I do agree, like when people broadcast certain sort of messaging and make it come off as like they're better than other groups of people, it is annoying and a bit childish. And I think at some point we all done a little bit of that, whether intentionally or unintentionally. I also could see it being a situation where a group of women are taking more ownership and understanding the autonomy when it comes to their body and their choice, because so much of um, human existence and what we consider to be womanhood was directly tied to procreating. And so there's a population of women now who are kind of like, I don't know if that's really my jam. Like, I don't know if that's really my thing. And so they're being vocal about it, especially when, unfortunately, when you're talking about Black and Brown communities, we're seeing how many people are co parenting or single parents or having unideal experiences. So it kind of like reinforces their thoughts and their decisions of not participating because it's like, oh, I'm not like other people because I'm not having these experiences. But like you said, it is annoying and very like distasteful to like come off as like, because I didn't participate in this, like I'm better than you. Like you don't understand people's situations, people's dynamics. So it's like have some level of maturity about it. Cause it's like I've definitely been one who like promote, how much I have no interest in being a father, but at the same time, I always show respect to all my male friends and them being fathers, and obviously all my homegirls who have kids as well. Because, you know, even though I don't like kids, it's still a beautiful thing. It's still a beautiful process. And, you creating something out of love, hopefully, and like raising a life. But I ain't doing that. So more power to you.
Right, right. And me personally, I've never introduced my child to anyone. And I hope that when I do, it's somebody who is worthy of that. I feel like that's a very sacred thing. It's not just something that anyone should just do. And, there's people who bring their kids to the date. I'm not judging, but I personally feel like that is very sacred and a serious step too. I got to
Uh,
know that, this person is indeed interested in me and for the long haul. And I would hate to introduce her to someone new that is like potentially going to be in the picture for them to kind of like have second thoughts, because it's going to get too real for them, because once you do that, it's kind of like, okay, well, what's next? There's always a what's next factor. And if the communication isn't there and you're not talking about these things, then, you can get heartbroken or whatever word you want to use.
yeah.
Your
And I
emotions
would
can get
also
tethered.
add, yes, I agree. And I'll also add that not only whether they see something long term with you, like what is their investment or their, I guess, ideologies when it comes to them as a potential step parent or co parent or parental type figure in that dynamic as well. Because, yeah, you might work well with this person, but when it comes to children, they may have difference of opinion. And like, how does that impact y'all dynamic as well? Because there, even though I'm someone who has no interest of having children, like I have a very specific, strict upbringing. I come from a lot of, levels of like discipline and order and things like that. And so even if I don't want to have kids, if God forbid I was to ever have kids, like I have a vision of like how I would normally operate with said child. And not everybody operates that way when it comes to those things. So that's where you can also clash, because it's like you see certain things once you start to get around the kids, and then it's like you want to like maybe participate in some sort of way or play a little role as like a parental figure, and then the other person is like, well, that's not your baby, so you shouldn't be saying nothing. And it's like, well, he bad and he needs discipline, not like
No, yeah.
physical discipline, not hitting him, but like he needs some sort of order and you're not providing him such. And like that's where you can clash in that way. So I think it's not only important to like, okay, where is this going to go long term as you and I as a couple, but like, how do you view the dynamic when it comes to like parenting or children in general, all those different things. And I think a lot of times people don't consider that. They get so caught up in just what we got going on, and then that's when they move too fast and get caught up in like, oh, wait, you don't even like believe in the things that I believe in, and like, how is this going to work?
Right. And even like inviting people into my space. I just feel like I'm very territorial in general. Like I'm a person who enjoys company. So it's like, I don't know. I get really territorial with the things that I love and like with my feelings. So a lot of the time I feel like because I'm not inviting the other person, like I would rather go to them or like I'd rather go out somewhere public or we can do maybe like, I don't know, like a getaway or something. And it's like maybe that kind of turns them off a little bit. I've never had the conversation, but I'm that type of person. Like I'm not inviting said person into my space. I haven't.
I mean,
So,
yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would ever, if a woman never
would you
invited
feel
me
some
to her
type of way
space,
if
I don't know
she's
if I
if
would
she
feel some type of
hasn't?
way. I don't think
Okay.
so. Yeah, I don't think so. And it all depends on like their circumstance per se, because times is rough. There's a lot of people who still live at home with their parents because it's just financially makes more sense for them. But then also like men are different when it comes to that. Like a man doesn't necessarily care um if a woman is
Is
maybe
still
as
living with mom?
accomplished, yeah, like as accomplished to a certain extent. Like
Mm.
like a man doesn't necessarily have the same check boxes on his list in comparison to women. Like if I was to tell a woman like, oh yeah, like I still live at home with my parents, like I'm getting clipped. Like this conversation is done. Like it's over with. But if a woman was to tell me that, I'm like, I'm just gonna assume like, okay, you staying here because you don't want to pay rent, and like I don't blame you. I wish I could do that. Like there's like this old one of the old Dave Chappelle stand-ups from way back in the day. And I forgot what the entire joke was, but the joke was basically like men don't actually like nice cars. Men only like nice cars because women like nice cars. And that if a man could fuck a woman in a cardboard box, he would live in a cardboard box. Like
Mm.
it's really about getting access to the woman. He don't care about the circumstances or like her setup. They should care to a certain extent, but I think most men don't necessarily care. Like we view things differently because we don't view women as like she needs to be a provider or like how she's supporting herself to a certain extent. So I
I
personally
don't
wouldn't
know.
look at it kind of crazy, but maybe I should. Maybe I need to start assessing people like, yo, what's good with you? Like you live in a track
That's
house? Like
funny.
what's going on?
No, I hopefully you're not encountering those kind of people, but hey, you know what? This may be a little off topic, but I feel like I would appreciate someone who is, let's say they're living with their family. It's like, why have we strayed away from wanting to disconnect from our family so much? Everybody needs their own this, everybody needs their own that.
Well, that's a generational thing. Because if we're talking about children of Caribbean immigrants, the reason why we are so quick to run away from family is because we're so used to the Caribbean lifestyle of like all your aunts and uncles probably living with you or going through your house as they come into the States before they make their way out. And that's the big reason why minimalism became such a thing because obviously even with like African Americans in the US, because they came from very little, they're just stockpiling and hoarding a bunch of stuff. And as children, we hated that shit. And now when
Mm,
you go and visit like a millennial adult, like everything is minimal. They only have just enough to do whatever it is that they need. They don't need to have excess. So I think that was also a big thing is like we are so used to like not being able to like spread our wings to a certain extent. Because if you look at the sitcoms, it was, mom, dad, brother and sister, everybody had their own room. Dad had like his man cave or whatever or his garage. Everybody has like their little pocket of privacy. But then when you're going into like these communities, specifically, especially Caribbean immigrant communities, like you have cousins, you have aunts and uncles all under the same roof because that's how they live back on the island. And as
mm.
a child, you want your privacy, you want your space, especially when you're getting into your teenage years. And that just didn't happen for a lot of households. So as soon as you had the kind of money or the opportunity to just dip, you dipped and didn't look back because you just get used to like that. I love my family to death. When I go back home for the holidays, my social media runs out very quickly because it's just so much talking, which is borderline yelling, so many pots and pans, there's all the noise. And it's like, I like my peace and quiet. I sound like a grandpa. I don't give a fuck. I enjoy my sanctuary and like being around family is like, it feel overstimulated. So I think that's another thing. And that's why people are like reinforce that. And then you also have just how things operate from like a gender role sort of thing. Like I mentioned, like the idea of like a woman looking down upon you because you still live at home, that didn't just happen now. Like that's been the talk since I was, you know, 16, 17 years old. So it's like these sorts of ideas and concepts have been here forever. So they don't necessarily go away, even though they probably should to a certain extent, especially when, you know, some would argue it's not necessarily fair because we don't necessarily look at women in that way. Like women have roommates, women still live at home and they don't get critiqued the same way. But if a man was like, oh yeah, I still live with my mom's or, whatever, depending on who he's talking to, she's probably be like, I'm cool. Like you don't
Right.
they're essentially equated. If you can't support yourself on your own, you ain't got your shit together
Mhm.
and you're gonna get clipped.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on the emotional maturity of the person, and communication because like you said, times are hard. So I feel like if you're understanding and you really like the person and you really wanted to go somewhere, I guess you will kind of bypass a lot of the things. But there has been, in my personal perspective, opportunities that I've given to bypass certain things and then end up regretting it. So, you kind of, it's like, it's a really
She
hard.
don't learn, y'all. She don't learn, y'all. I've been yelling at this woman for like 4 years. She don't learn.
I think, I think I have. I think I've learned my lesson. I think I've done a lot of um trial and error
Listen, man.
to kind of now understand, okay, this is not for me.
It may not necessarily relate to you, but the thing I always tell my homegirls is like, don't give grace to men that wouldn't give you the same in return. And it doesn't, I think we kind of talk about something different in terms of like, oh, yeah, maybe you don't have this, but it's like fine. But I think a lot of times men are very black and white with how they choose who they indulge in. Either they're going to give you attention or they not. And it's like women, a lot of times you're like, oh, give him a chance. He's not necessarily your type or whatever the case is. And then when it don't work out, you kind of feel even more regret because it's like, yo, you're not even the type that I would even give attention to. So it's like, it kind of don't make sense at the end of the day to like give people chances if it's something that you really are not uh interested in indulging in or you normally wouldn't indulge in. But it, all depends on like the context of what it is. But yeah,
Right.
I'm not somebody like, even if I have had stances on specific things, because I've always been like back and forth about dating women with kids. But even when I've like flip flop, I always understand like, okay, if I'm going to then give this person a shot, like this is what I'm sacrificing and this is what I'm going into the dynamic for and like how I need to adjust more times than not, if there's just certain things I don't like or I'm not a fan of, like I'm not going to be like, well, let me see if X, Y, and Z gonna happen. Because for what? My job is not to change people. So it's like I'm not
Yeah.
gonna give someone a shot or indulge in somebody knowing that they have these specific traits or thoughts that I'm not, co-signing. I guess the best example is like I don't remember when this was. This possibly had to be last year, but like women, and I can't remember what ethnic group it was, and I can't remember if it was white women or black women, but there were women who were like being vocal about finding out that their husband was like a Trump supporter or voted for Trump. And
Mm,
it's like, that's a non-negotiable for me. Like,
okay.
I'm not going to date somebody and I know that, have different political views. And then I'm like, well, you do everything else fine. So it's like, this is okay. And it's like, nah, I'm not bending when it comes to that. Matter of fact, if I was married and I found out this, my partner was, first of all, there's no way we're getting married in the first place because we're having these conversations prior. So the fact you didn't know where he stood, that's crazy. In a hypothetical dimension that I married somebody and had no idea what her political stance was, and then I found out that, oh yeah, she down with the Orange Gang. You're getting clipped. Like you're out of here. Like we signed. Don't come back home because the locks have already been changed. The locks have already been changed,
So wait,
baby
wait,
girl.
wait. So like you married her and she never told you she voted for Trump for the 2020
It would never happen.
election.
But if in a crazy dimension where that would have
Yeah.
happened and I would have found out, it's over with. Cause like
Mm,
we not now I understand what kind of idiot you are. So it's like I can't indulge in somebody like that.
wow. I've lost a lot of dynamics with people because of the political viewpoints. So I get that. And not so much where it was a discussion. I feel like people just see what I was advocating for and they were advocating for something else and we kind of just like went our separate ways. Like I just feel like some things you don't really need to have a conversation about. You kind of can tell what they are, for and not entertain it obviously. I don't know, I have mixed reviews, like, I'm pro a lot of things, I'm
Okay.
pro-Black, I'm pro
Okay.
with immigrant, I'm pro,
Okay.
body your choice,
Okay.
I'm pro, um, anti-war, like, I
Okay.
don't want people
I'm waiting
getting
for the but
killed.
here. I'm waiting for the but so I could end this recording and we could just go our separate way. What is the but?
No, no,
Continue.
no, no.
Continue.
But I just feel like I mean, obviously, Trump is an extreme. Like he's an extreme level. So I don't want to say like I'm going to cut somebody off because they voted for Trump because a lot of people have remorse. A lot of people will say that they didn't know that it was going to get this far, right?
So now, okay. Now I won't cut you off because you're a Trump supporter, but I'm going to cut you off for being an idiot. That'll be my reason for cutting you off because
Okay.
he was clear as day. There's no confusion. Like his messages was clear from his first presidency, what he was about, what he was trying to, the type of people that he was trying to influence and inspire. Like there's the world, life is very gray, but there are
Mhm.
a very healthy amount of things that are just black and white. So there's no, for me at least, to each its own, but for me at least, when there's certain things that are just very clear, there's no conversation or discussion about it. I
Mm,
shouldn't have to converse with somebody to help them understand why Trump, and this is not even a political podcast, but I shouldn't have to have a conversation with somebody for them to understand like what Trump means to white oppression in this country, knowing the history of white oppression in this country, on top of the things that we see in the news every day, especially when it comes to people who look like us. Like, there's no conversing there. So it's like, I'm not giving nobody any grace. Like,
mhm,
you all, unless you telling me you have some form of mental illness or learning disability and you just can't comprehend the English language, you all went to school. You all went to social studies. Like, what? There's really nothing more to say when it comes to that. I feel like that's off topic. So we
We
get
went on a
yeah,
tangent.
yeah, 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 yeah. My bad, my
No,
bad, my
but no,
bad.
it's cool though because I just feel like, political standpoints are something that obviously if it's not discussed and then you find out this person is an idiot, it's just not gonna work, You just gotta say goodbye, I guess,
Listen, man.
at
People
that
get
point.
clipped every day, B. People get clipped every day.
Um, so I don't know, I guess that kind of wraps up the conversation about dating in general. I feel like you have to know what it is you're dealing with when you're dating a single parent, You gotta know that they are not available the time and that you have to have patience and, willing to have some kind of emotional maturity and emotional intelligence. Because I feel like a lot of the days in today's society, everybody's so focused on themselves. See each their own. You're your own main character in your own life, right?
Mhm.
But like I was saying before, with people voicing how they're so, you know, I'm not a parent yet, and fuck them kids. I don't want no parts of them
Listen, man.
kids.
They're not wrong.
And it's just like, damn, like I see it from both sides because at one point I was fuck them kids, I didn't think I was gonna become a parent at 26. But here I am, 31, thriving in it, and hopefully attracting a person who is willing to participate in my lifestyle too.
That's the one last thing I would say. In general, regardless of where you stand on it, people also got to stop acting like a victim. like because people make certain stances that you're being attacked in a certain way, or this is attack on mothers, or this is attack on people who don't have children. At the end of the day, nobody's putting a gun to your head to date people you don't want to date. Date people who have similar interests or similar ideologies, and everything's fine. Like if someone says they don't want to date people who have kids, there's nothing fucking wrong with that. If someone who has kids say they prefer to date people who have children, there's nothing wrong with that. Like
Mhm.
find out what it is that you want or prefer and what works for you, and then find people that have the same thought process. And yes, it's going to be a fucking hassle and it's going to be a headache to find these people, but that's dating in general. I just not a fan of like people be feeling like they're a victim of like, oh, because I'm a mom, they try to talk to me like I'm damaged goods or whatever. It's like you're not damaged goods because of the lifestyle that you're currently in. You operate in a certain way, and that doesn't work for people, and that's totally fine because it works for you, and that's all that matters. Now you just have to find somebody that is fine with how your lifestyle works and it works for them. Otherwise, everybody should just shut the fuck up and just figure
Right.
some shit out on their own because it's way too much crying and complaining and retweeting this because I don't like what this person said, or they're being too harsh, or like people. I don't know when people got so invested in other people's opinions. It is mind blowing. Yes, there are plenty of times you're gonna see some shit and be like, yo, that actually might be a little bit triggering. But at the end of the day, does it really fucking matter? Because this is some random person. You don't even know where they're at. You don't know what kind of life they're living. Like, I don't know. Because
You know what it is, I think? I think because a lot of people are decentering men, they have time now. So they're on social media and they're, giving people their opinion on why they're doing it. And
and
there's
that's
just
fine. My thing is like, you don't have to care. Because there's so many
Mhm.
times. Well, it's two things. One, it's totally fine to have an opinion because you're a human being. That's what makes you human. But one, you don't always have to share. I be having mad thoughts. I be having a lot of thoughts, so many thoughts that I do not share on social media. Sometimes I even
Yeah.
type something out and then I delete it because I'm like, why am I sharing this out in the public world? Like, I don't care. I don't care enough
Your
to share
footprint.
this. Yeah, like I don't care enough to share this in the moment. So it's like I'll delete it. So that's
Yeah.
one aspect of it. And then also, I don't have to care about shit that either may possibly apply to me or doesn't apply
Yeah.
to me. So it's like sometimes
If
I
it
feel like
doesn't
people need to,
resonate.
yeah, like I have homegirls that be butchering men online all day, and like some of that should be funny. So I don't be caring. And then I got this one homegirl who I always bother because she hates Aquarius men, and I'd be like, "Yo, like, what's good? Like, why y'all attacking me?" And it's only for fun because at the end of the day, that's just my homegirl. We're never going to date.
Right.
I don't care enough. But like, I don't know. People just be too
Yeah.
invested in shit that don't mean nothing. Cause none of these tweets
Yeah.
are you taken to the grave. None of this stuff is gonna even matter in 2 weeks, in 5 years. The world might not even be here. So what are we talking about?
Right.
I
Life
mean,
is
I don't know.
so short. And, it's unfortunate that sometimes within dating, you have to go through these experiences, but not everything is perfect either, And it takes those kind of mishaps to kind of know, okay, well, this is what I won't be doing anymore. And this is what I don't want in a person, like so it's a learning experience for sure. It's nothing that you should really kind of like rant over, like I feel like a lot of the time it's just miscommunication, it's misunderstandings, but those are just like opportunities in my opinion to just be clear with yourself, to recenter yourself and to take the time, maybe take a pause and to say, okay, well, I've gone through enough sessions of dates that, maybe it's time I focus on A, B, C, D.
Right. Yeah. And the same way we ended the podcast last week, therapy, therapy, therapy. Because yes, going through dating and these experiences may be unideal, but you have to go through them to understand what does and doesn't work for you. If I was someone who never dated women with children, I would never have known whether it works for me or not. And you have to go through these experiences, unfortunately, in order to understand what works for you. And like, if you can, get a therapist so that way you can talk to someone who is clinically trained to help you navigate these things, your thoughts, your emotions, your experiences, versus having crazy claims on social media that might be
Mhm.
belittling others. Or a lot of times
Mhm.
it's just showing that you're hurt. And like, there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with being hurt. Like, you're
Mhm.
human. We all get hurt sometime. But it's like,
Mhm.
if you are able
Get a
to
diary.
understand, yeah, like get a diary, get a journal. You could do it anonymously also on
Right.
various like Substack, Medium. Like you create platforms that you could, start your own fucking podcast and start venting about shit. Who knows? Whatever. But like I think a lot of times
No, we don't need any more
I'll
of that.
I mean, nobody's gonna listen, so it doesn't even matter. I won't be listening. Yeah, like I think if people were able to have an outlet at least to like navigate these things, then they're able to digest their experiences in a much more healthy
Yeah.
way. It's like I've probably
It's
dated
a lot
more
of
in my
projection.
20s. Rejection sucks. Like nobody likes that shit.
Mhm.
You get excited about somebody and then it just derails in
Doesn't
a
work
way that you
out.
never would have thought it would. And like those are a tough pill to swallow. But I
Mhm.
think in my experience, I've dated more in my 30s than I did in comparison to my 20s. And I don't have any sort of like regrets or bitterness towards anybody. I'm actually appreciative of every individual because I've learned something new about myself and I've learned something new about, I guess, the types of people that are out there in general. So that way I'm
Mhm.
able to navigate the next situation even better. And so, yeah, like go to therapy,
Yes.
stop crying on social media, and read a book. I don't know.
No, I agree. Definitely go to therapy and just stay off social media with like these grand opinions, you know. Like obviously everybody has an opinion and everybody's entitled to share whatever they want online, but I'm not opposed to the internet being surveillanced a little better because there's just been so much things that kind of cloud people's judgment or like maybe you'll just be in your head one day you'll get on social media see something that kind of tickled you a little bit and now you're in your feelings. That's why I limit my social media and I try to at least do my best with my algorithm and who I follow because and if I see anything that I don't like, I'm quick to hit the not interested. I don't want to see this. Don't suggest this anymore. Like use
Mhm.
those buttons because they're going to help your experience online as well.
Right.
Just a tip.
And don't really need social media in the first place. Like, if you have
Yeah.
real life friends, communicate with them that way. Have real conversations versus seeing generated content that, one could be negative or people are just making shit up for the sake of like trying to go viral and like trying to, get their 15 minutes of fame. So it's like you don't have to indulge in that shit. Like there's TV, there's
Right.
film, there's books, there's a whole world out there that you can kind of
Right.
explore. If it wasn't for podcasting, I probably would have deleted all my social media already. But y'all stuck with me.
Yes, and we love you here. We want you to stay. I want you to stay. So don't leave anywhere yet.
Oh, thanks. I feel
You're
welcomed.
welcome.
All hearts. I'm not doing it, but hearts.
Well, that concludes our episode. If you guys enjoyed the topic, if you have anything to chime in, if you're a parent, if you're not a parent, let us know. Have you experienced dating a single parent and how do you feel about it? And what are some tips that you can give me? Because I'm just getting, my feet wet into it. You said you've done a lot of dating in your 30s. I would say I did a lot of dating in my 20s and obviously now with a kid dating is different for me and I haven't really explored a lot of that yet. Haven't been successful. Still am single. Would love a relationship, but it comes with a lot of terms and conditions over here. It's a strict program.
All right. Let's wrap this up right now.
And yeah,
Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, follow us on socials. What else you gotta tell the good people before
tell the
you
good
start
people.
listing out your terms and conditions?
No, I won't list out the terms and conditions. Last episode was resumes, so maybe once we start airing these out, I'll probably have more content to see if things open up, if things change. I did say 2020 was probably a no-go, so let's just see how everything.
Have no words. I legit have no words. You got it.
Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.